Is it Sunkworks? Wait, are we live? Yes.
The music!
Wait, are we live?
Okay.
Yes.
The music!
Δεν θέλω να με μελώ, αλλά όλο γράφω μελωδίες. Το πρόβλημα είναι πως ξέρω μόνο 5 συγχορδίες. Και ως εκ τούτου λοιπόν τα τραγούδια βγαίνουν μαλακίες. Υποφέρω γιατρέ μου στα αλήθεια. Γι' αυτό γράψε μου μια άδεια να φύγω, μια ναρώτικη να πάρω τα βουνά. Και υπόσχομαι το τάρικο θα στείλω με ένα αηρίσι με μεταφορά. Και πήγα να ψαρέψω νερό απ' την πανιέρα μου, μετά ήπια καφέ απ' τη γραμματική παλέτα μου. Η εργασία μου έφαγε το σκύλο. Κι άμα μου στείλεις SMS θα σε διόλο στείλω. Δεν πάω στο ψυχολόγο μα διαβάζω ονειροκρίτη. 10 λεπτά με τα πόδια τα κάνω Αθήνα Κρήτη. Κοιμάμαι στη δουλειά, μ' έχω άϊπνη στο σπίτι. Και πιστεύω αν γίνω vegan πως θα σώσω τον πλανήτη. Γι' αυτό γράψε μου μια άδεια να φύγω, μια ναρώτικη να πάρω τα βουνά. Και υπόσχομαι το τάρικο θα στείλω με ένα αηρίσι με μεταφορά. Γι' αυτό γράψε μου μια άδεια να φύγω, μια ναρώτικη να πάρω τα βουνά. Και υπόσχομαι το τάρικο θα στείλω με ένα αηρίσι με μεταφορά. Γι' αυτό γράψε μου μια άδεια να φύγω, μια ναρώτικη να πάρω τα βουνά. Και υπόσχομαι το τάρικο θα στείλω με ένα αηρίσι με μεταφορά.
That was delightful. Thank you, Agelina. Okay. Sorry, this is always disorienting. Okay. Welcome to Sunkworks. I'm going to get off screen today. So what I'd like to show you today is called Mecris. This is how I'm using LLMs with Claude Code And no Claude. Where is the tab here? So I have successfully shown this to at least one person so far. Hold on. I hear myself in the monitor audio and it's making it very difficult. One moment here. How do I turn the monitor audio off, but not mute the actual microphone? Sorry, bear with me just 1 second. This is live here. Oh, just turn the monitor gain down. There we go. I can't hear myself at all, except for the natural way. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the Claude Code CLI, and this is your entry point if you're trying to follow my experiment. So you clone this one first, and it has two pieces that you're going to clone underneath, not both Claude Code proxies, just one or the other, and this light LLM container. Okay, let me show you these projects first. Okay, so there's several of these projects called Claude Code Proxy, and there's another similar project called Claude Code Router that's a lot more popular, but these are the ones I'm using to connect Claude Code CLI to something. Hello, puppy. Hello. Live. Connect the Claude Code CLI to something that is not the Anthropic backend, because I've developed a lovely workflow using the MCP Model Context Protocol that's called Mecris. That's what I'm going to show today. And it is very expensive to run it on Anthropic Inc.'s Claude models because they're very capable models, and we really need only simple things. So we don't want to spend the money on Claude. That's how we got here in the first place, actually. Mecris was designed to spend up some money that I had already purchased credits with on Anthropic's API. So you buy token credits and you use them with the Claude Code CLI, or you use them some other way through the API. But I find this is a very nice way to do it. And you get many of the same capabilities that folks who are on the Claude Code Pro and Max plans will get. In fact, I think you get all the same capabilities, except your only rate limit is when you run out of credits. So, I was able to spend $25 in credits first in about 8 days, when I had 8 days to spend them. And then just this past week, one of my friends told me he had the same problem. He bought some credits last year and he hasn't gotten around to use them. So I was able to dump another $25 of credit into this MCP server to give it some of the features that are documented. So if you read all these docs, they're highly aspirational. A lot of the things that are listed as configured or completed or production ready are really mock implementation that doesn't quite do the thing, or does the thing but with a big asterisk. Like, for example, budget tracking for the LLM. So we wanted this to use up the credit in the allotted time. Use up the credit. Not before, we shouldn't run out 2 days into an 8-day experiment. And we have, Claude now has a billing API. Okay, so we've been able to implement this past week, pull from that billing API, so we can actually know how much we've spent in Claude credits. It's not very useful because we don't actually want to spend any Claude credits here at this point, but we still can. And in fact, the Claude model is much more capable than the Groq GPT OSS open source models here. I'll show you what I'm using instead for the simple task, where all I really need is an LLM that's capable of a tool call so that it can use my MCP server and follow simple instructions about what to do with the data that comes out of the MCP server. So this is supposed to be an LLM that gives you current, accurate, topical information, which, you know, within parameters is a very useful thing. There's two models that I'm using and a third model that I'm lightly using. One of these, I think it's this 70B, or is there another smaller model? We'll see which models I have configured in a minute. So there's a configuration for each of these back-end pieces, because we're building, like, Claude, you know, Anthropic doesn't really want you to do this. I don't see anywhere in the licensing that it says you can't do this, but I think the license is basically all rights reserved, so technically at any moment they could come along and say you can't do this. But so far it seems okay. So we're taking, if you don't understand exactly how Claude works, there are a set of different models. There's Haiku, there's Sonnet. I'm oversimplifying here, but there's Opus, and Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus you can think of as like a small, medium, and large model, or little, medium, and big. Okay, and so the big model costs the most to use per request, and it has the most capabilities, and it maybe has the largest context window. I'm not exactly sure about all those parameters. I haven't tuned everything finally. I just sort of went through all the models until I found a set that seemed to work, and I plugged them in the places where they go. I don't think that I have done this exactly correctly here, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But okay, so we're going to fire this up. I'm just going to show you what you do. We're 15 minutes in here, so we should probably get to the demo part so we can actually see what you can do with this. So we don't start with Mecris, we start with no Claude. I'm going to make the terminal a little bigger, and I'm going to use push D so we can come back to this directory. So here's no Claude. I have my no Claude clone. Here it is, in case you want to pull it for yourself. And there's a vars file, which I believe we can read safely. This is going to show the API key for Claude Code Proxy, which is only bound locally, so it's not going to give anyone access to anything they shouldn't have here. So I thought that this Anthropic auth token was not actually used, but it turns out that one of the Claude Code proxies uses this as another auth. So I have this same string set somewhere else in a file that I can't show you because it has the API key for the next layer up, and there's two of these layer ups. So it goes from Claude Code Proxy to Light LLM, and from Light LLM to Groq. And Light LLM is like a hub for models. So Groq, we can plug in Groq, we could plug in Claude, we could plug in various things on the back end and then manifest them on the front end under our own name for the model. So we've got these three models exposed. Here it says 38B. I wonder if that model is deprecated. Maybe that's why it didn't work very well. Because I didn't see it on the list we were just looking at. All right, so basically we're going to come back and we're going to source that file, and it's going to allow us to use these pieces that we're about to spin up. So I'm going to run a tmux here, and there are a few files I can't show you, but there's an example file I can show you so you can see what it looks like in structure at least. We're going to start with Claude Code Proxy. And again, there's two competing implementations of this, so this is the env.example. And this is the key that you get out of Light LLM. All right, and Light LLM is going to be listening here. And then we pick our big, middle, and small models. And the Claude Code proxy will intercept request for Opus. It will translate to GPT OSS 120B. Request for Sonnet, it will go to 20B. And small, it will go to 3B, 8B. So we don't need to source anything here. We can just do UV run Claude Code proxy. The different Claude Code proxy projects are implemented different ways. Check them all out if you're interested in this. And then the next thing is this Light LLM. And here's an env.example that I can show you again. Now we're connecting to a database. We actually are going to do some accounting. So there's a screen we could go to and see all of our requests and the success or failure of the requests. I don't think it keeps detailed logs, but it could in theory. And this is where your Groq API key goes. So Groq is a free service at first. It barely costs anything. I will show you the usage. I've done quite a lot of experiments on here just so you can understand. I did turn billing on because it will rate limit your requests. And from Claude Code's perspective, if a request is rate limited, it is the end of the conversation. It's not going to try again. So that's kind of annoying. So I only want to be rate limited if I'm, making an excessive number of requests. But if you're a free user, then any number more than 1 or 2 is generally considered excessive. And Claude Code tends to make a lot of requests in succession. So you can see it doesn't cost very much here. We've got 75 cents spent on one model, 65 cents spent on another. This one we spent a whole of 1 cent. See, this is the little small model. We haven't had very many requests here because I didn't really understand how the steering goes, so I haven't really used this one much. Claude Code CLI doesn't really steer requests intelligently, from what I can tell. Or maybe it does, but only when you're using the logged in Anthropic service. So maybe that's where the problems are for people this week, because that's something I haven't experienced. I've heard of a lot of people having problems with Claude Code in the last few weeks, and I'm on Reddit. I read the Claude Code subreddit, the Anthropic subreddit, and they're just flooded with complaints this week. In fact, there are people saying it might be an open AI campaign, like a marketing campaign, to make people think that Claude Code is bad and they need to look for another solution. But I haven't had any problems with it myself. It's definitely had a few outages, but who doesn't? All right, so we just type make in this directory, and we have to make sure we have our Docker thing ready. We're using OrbStack instead of Docker, but it's basically the same thing, containers. And in this Light LLM config, I'll show you there's nothing sensitive in here. All of the models that we've exposed. So this is the model name upstream, and this is the model that we're exposing it as. And we're picked up as OpenAI somewhere because Light LLM exposes an OpenAI with these models. So I commented this out because it seemed to be the expensive one. I definitely think this is the one you would compare to Opus. So I have plugged in a slightly cheaper model because I managed to spend more on the single request that I used for this than I spent on all my other experiments that day. I think it was a 16-cent request, which, like, woo, big spender compared to actual Claude usage. Gets very expensive. I think I almost spent $5 in a single request one day the other day. When we had all hands on deck, we have to spend this $25 in the next 24 hours or it goes bad. So I gleefully complied, and I did try the Opus model, and I was fairly impressed, but not $5 impressed. But for 16 cents, I definitely was pretty happy with what came out of here. I don't remember if that was exactly how much it costs, but okay. So then the next thing is we go back to the no-clod directory, and I'm going to source vars, and then we pop D, and we're back in the Mecris directory. And if I run make clod, there's a make file here. It's going to call clod with my MCP config. So the whole point of Mecris is it's an MCP server. Claude built this for me to show me what an MCP server was. I said, well, why don't we spend the $25 to learn what an MCP server is? So if I run make Claude, now it says welcome to Claude code, but we're connected to localhost 8082. Isn't that neat? And if I do model haiku, then I say, what, no, I'm going to do model sonnet, because that one is going to work. That 7B model doesn't have tool calling, from what I can tell, and maybe that's because it's been deprecated, and so it doesn't do tool calls anymore, because it seemed to do tool calls when I first set it up. And if you've seen me use Mecris before, it basically say, give me the status report, and please give me a bullet point summary of Claude as well. Okay, so it's made a little task list here, and it's going to do 2 actions using tool calls. It's going to read from an API that we've built. All right, and then it's going to explain what this thing does. And that's Mecris. It's pretty cool. So, and it barely costs anything to run with this cheap budget Claude, no Claude. Here, it's about a 15-minute wait. I'm going to pause. I'll be back in about 15 minutes because I want to show you here through the magic of internet, post-processing, how do we manage to spend so little? It's probably spent about a cent here on that series of requests, maybe 2 cents. But I'm going to pause the stream and we'll come back when we can see, since this is data that's delayed up to about 15 minutes. Okay, be right back. Are you back? I think so. All right, how much did it cost? 2 cents on the button. Okay, great. So we made some 120B calls. That's interesting because I thought I asked for Sonnet. I wonder if it upgraded the model for some reason. It certainly seems to have started on the cheap model. Interesting. Well, I still don't understand how it works, frankly, but the cool thing is it does, and it's much cheaper than genuine Claude, and you can use it with your MCP server that you built, because I'm sure you built an MCP server by now, because who hasn't? And this is pretty nice. So the big thing here, it's supposed to remind me every day. Well, first, okay, so it's supposed to look for things that look like an emergency, which we've got several APIs corralled into service objects that can return data that has certain shapes, shall we say, that can look threatening. Has anyone seen Severance? This is beginning to sound familiar, right? Okay, so when we find these scary numbers, we get an alert, hopefully as a text message, but in fact we haven't hooked up the text messaging capability yet, so the only way we get the alert is by going here to Claude and asking for the status update. But it will text me eventually. It will be able to text me It will be able to make decisions about whether to text me and when, and how will it make those decisions? I'm not really sure, but these LLMs apparently have a thinking capability, so we're going to exercise it. And I'll just remind you, in case you haven't tried this out, if you try this out and you think you're getting a good impression of Claude, the Claude experience, I would say you should try real, genuine Claude because it's really very good. But it's also fairly expensive compared to this. So if you're comfortable with the idea of testing out a watered down Claude, if you're more comfortable than putting $25 in and understanding that it'll only get you this far, yeah, and lots of people are spending $200 or $20 a month, or like, I don't really want to do that. I want this to be like a hobby thing. It should cost a lot less than $30 a month on the average month. It shouldn't cost anything, but I should still be able to use it as a hobby. So we started to build in this last phase sort of fallback plan for how, let me see, which one is it? At each step I tell Claude or Claude Light to write a document about what he's going to do or what the next guy should do or something like that. And I'm looking for what is the most recent files changed here. That's probably going to get us the most mileage. Maybe we can go to the latest pull request. That's what we'll do. Yeah. So this latest pull request is where we've given Claude a bit more exercise. We've been using the cheap, not Claude. Here we go. Groq odometer tracking. Yeah, so there's different ways to track usage on the different services. So in Groq, the expectation is I will tell it how much we've used periodically, since I don't need it to record every 2 cents, since the active observation uses some energy necessarily, right? It's never going to be zero unless we don't do the activity. Then we know that it doesn't cost anything because we haven't done it. So we're tracking data, but sort of optimistically, because the number doesn't move very much compared to the Claude API number, which won't move at all in our case because we're not going to be using Claude. And let me see if I can get that data out of here. Can you tell me about my Claude Anthropic API usage in the recent 2 weeks? So it doesn't really understand that there's an MCP endpoint for this, because I think we check the manifest of the MCP server. What endpoints are available? It's not very smart because we haven't primed it with, oh, wait a minute. Now it hasn't really called the tool. So this I would consider a bit obstinate here. Let's try the nice model here. What endpoints are there in the manifest of the MCP server? It's like it's not even connected to the MCP server at all. Call the manifest endpoint and tell me what it says. Seems like Claude is really stupid today. There, now. Okay, all right. It really doesn't understand that it's connected to the MCP server. Maybe it's not. That's what I think. No, it is running. It is running. Huh. There. There. Oh, okay, and I see the problem now. I think we didn't actually add this new feature. We got to the point where we said, okay, we want to bring these things to parity, and Claude ran out of money because we had already spent close to $18 to build these new endpoints and the code that backs them. So we're going to go in and we're going to run the code because I think we can still get some usage data. We should be able to see that I spent 10 cents on my API, on my Anthropic API. And I'm not going to pull up the Claude website again because last time I did that, I accidentally flashed my address on the screen. Well, so let's get the Groq. Okay. Get me the Groq data. Then. So it's supposed to fill out one of these with the current cost usage. Why does it keep trying to do this? I don't understand this. This was working very well before, but now it's not working very well. You just do the status update again. It's confused. All right, it's going to try this and it's going to fail. It's going to have to learn. I really don't want it to do that. What the hell? All right, I give up. So it says we spent 233 here, but we definitely did not. We have spent like another 8 cents. So you can see we can do some experiments. It's not as good as Claude. And I'm not sure why it's having such trouble here. We totally had the MCP server. I don't know if it's failing at tool calls or if it's just... I'm going to try a fresh session here. Maybe it didn't like that I forced it to reread Claude.md. Yeah, see, it's able to get the data. Okay. I think maybe it got confused by my bad instructions because I asked it to call an endpoint that wasn't there, so it started looking somewhere else. The one thing I've noticed about Claude Code is that it doesn't retain anything from session to session. So when I close a session and start a new one like that, it forgets all of the instructions that I've sent in. And that is very useful if you understand. But if you need to restart for some reason, like you're debugging the MCP server and it's invoked by the session, then it can be a bit painful because it starts from scratch every time. So I wonder if we can do that. Is that going to work? Yeah, if you've ever used Claude before and you didn't run the init command, it goes through all the files and it tries to learn about your code base. And this is going to use a lot of tokens. Okay, so it's telling me what it wants to do, but it doesn't actually do the thing. This is another place where the Claude models don't seem to have as much trouble. Let's see if anybody's watching. Doesn't say. Nope. Nobody watching. Just me. We're just going to delete this line. That all looks pretty good. It's a rough check. I've never heard of that. All right, we're going to spend some money. That's what I want to do. So I read that this model actually has been obsoleted. We're going to look at the models here and see what models. We're going to reconfigure the models here. We did spend some money here. That's good. Cool, but we're actually going to spend some money now. We want to use a model. Here we've got, oh, there's that 8B instant that I've been using. Okay. Does it have tool calls? It doesn't really say here. Where do we find that information? Docs. Models. Yeah, so what this is missing is, oh, it says it has tool use. Huh. I wasn't able to get it to do that. Let's see if we can get the same error that I had here. So we'll try the cheaper model and then we'll try the more expensive model. I want to look at the models and see what one is. Where's the pricing page? There was like a nice pricing page that had models. Get all available models. So these are the production models. Tokens. Huh. Here we go. We want some preview model. What preview model? This is the one. Moonshot. This one. This is the model that hurt me. Here, this is another one. Maybe we should try this one. Context window. This one's got the biggest context window. I think that's the one we should use to write Claude.md. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. It's not called that anymore. It's called 0905. Okay. So now we're exposing one more model. Now we're going to use the model. I'm going to edit the env file off screen because I think it has a key in there that you can't see. Actually, I'm just going to scroll down far enough so you can't see it. Here's that one I already showed you. Okay. And we're just going to put this in here. Okay. Oh, we've been on the haiku model. Did it switch to that because of the context window size? Interesting. Wait. No, it spent most of its time on 120B. That's what I thought. Okay. It's auto-updating, huh? Wait a minute. This one needs to be updated as well, I guess. Oh yeah, okay. We still have to update this file. Okay, there was one there. Kimi instruct. How do you spell it? Kimi K2. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's see if it figures it out this time. See, it's going to think a lot harder because it's a bigger model. It has a bigger context window. The context window is the main thing, but the model quality, the model depth itself is important. But if it runs out of context before it gets deep into the analysis, then it's not going to work either. So both are very important. So the one time I used this model previously, I was very impressed with the output. I thought this might not have been worth 16 cents, but here we go. Boom, 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 boom. I don't know if this is really helpful or not, but I'm going to ask it to write another document. So I think we can call it a day. So the bottom line is if you want Claude-like behavior, you're going to pay for the good models. It doesn't have to be Claude models, though. There are other good models out there. They may even have specialties that the Claude models don't. I don't know what they've been trained on. I don't know how you know that. Unless you're given the training data and the way to reproduce the model. I don't know if models are even deterministic like that. How are we doing? We spend some money yet? We spent some money yet? Yeah, we spent $1 almost. Let's see. Usage. Where's the moonshot? Here we go. 22 cents. We're up to 22 cents, but bear in mind this data is a little bit delayed. Well, it certainly wrote a lot. Wait a minute. Let me see here. What is it saying? Wow. You know what we're going to do? We're going to review this in Git. because it really did. Did a great job here. I wonder if that works. I'm going to switch to the lower quality model and try that out. There it is. Okay. I don't think this information is accurate. But we would have to dive into the code to understand why. And this number might be correct. I think this number might even be correct. Let me see. No. Yeah, there's my Visa again. It says $21. I think we're subtracting our Groq usage from that number to get this number. And we haven't updated our Groq usage yet. So let's try that now. Can you update our Groq usage? This is how you do it. Say, we're up to current month. Use the odometer. That looks correct. I wish it returned more cost information, so we didn't have to call the cost endpoint again now, because I think we pay for every tool call. Since there's another request, but I think we actually pay for every tool call starting like tomorrow. I remember getting an email saying we would be paying for every tool call soon. I don't know how much that is though. Might be still fairly cheap. All right, we're gonna try one more time here. Give me a status update. So what I said is I don't believe that it can actually do tool calls, and I don't know if that's because it doesn't understand. Well, it did a tool call again, or did it make that data up? Did it make that data up? Because I don't see an actual tool call there. It just has data. That looks like the correct data. Maybe it already did the tool call and it's not going to do it again. Yeah, I really don't know how it works, but if you're interested in this, you're welcome to try it with me. All right, that's the end. We're going to do another music and then peace out. One moment here. One moment. Goodbye, everyone. Which song is this? Thalassa. Thalassa. That's what that says. Yep.
Θέλω να αλλάξω, δεν μ' αρέσει να αλλάξω το πλακάκι της κουζίνας. Θέλω να το αντικαταστήσω με ένα άλλο, το πλακάκι της πισίνας. Γιατί μου είχε πει πως του αρκεί να έχει μία θάλασσα και εμένα. Γιατί να μου το πει αν δεν το εννοεί, πως θέλει μία θάλασσα και εμένα, μία θάλασσα και εμένα. Κι έτσι, κάπως έτσι, ξαναμπήκα στη θάλασσα. Κι έτσι, κάπως έτσι, σε φιλούσα μέχρι που λαχάνιασα. Θέλω να αλλάξω, δεν μ' αρέσει να αλλάξω το πλακάκι της κουζίνας. Θέλω να το αντικαταστήσω με ένα άλλο, το πλακάκι της πισίνας. Γιατί μου είχε πει πως του αρκεί να έχει μία θάλασσα και εμένα. Γιατί να μου το πει αν δεν το εννοεί, πως θέλει μία θάλασσα και εμένα, μία θάλασσα και εμένα. Κι έτσι, κάπως έτσι, ξαναμπήκα στη θάλασσα. Κι έτσι, κάπως έτσι, σε φιλούσα μέχρι που λαχάνιασα. Κι έτσι, κάπως έτσι, ξαναμπήκα στη θάλασσα. Κι έτσι, κάπως έτσι, σε φιλούσα μέχρι που λαχάνιασα. Δεν μ' αρέσει να αλλάξω το πλακάκι της κουζίνας.